Welcome to Awaken with Marissam podcast. Today's topic is marriage. Is marriage dying in the US? Let's talk about it. According to the US Census, in 2022, 34% of people ages 15 and over had never been married, which is an increase from 23% in 1950. The estimated median age to marry in 2022 for the first time was actually 30 for men and 28 for women, which is an increase from ages 23 and 20 in 1947. It appears from this data that people are waiting longer to get married. According to data from the National Center for Health Statistics, marriage rates hit an all-time low in 2018, the most recently recorded year. The national marriage rate fell from 6.9 to 6.5 marriages per 1,000 people from 2017 to 2018. The dip was the first noticeable change in a fairly stable trend over the past decade, following a long decline starting in the mid-1980s. In 2001, the national rate was 8.2 marriages per 1,000 people. While marriage rates have declined for everyone, past research illustrates that rates have particularly declined among minorities and those in middle and lower economics. Decreased marriage is associated with increases in unwed childbearing over the last several decades, particularly for these groups. And this is according to the National Center for Health Statistics. Okay, so now I'm going to ask some questions. Let me see. Who am I going to call on first? Okay, I'm going to call on Kylan first. Kylan, when you were growing up, did you view marriage as optional or mandatory?
Well, personally, I growing up, I thought of it as well, here's the thing. I look at it as it being a mandatory thing, and that's only because it's like, what's your goal in life? What do you want out of life? And obviously, if you're someone like me that want a family of your own, be able to grow into your role in society, as for me, a man, is being able to provide for your family. However, so I looked at it as a mandatory thing. But once again, for other people, it might be different with what they want in their life as well.
Okay, and what are your current beliefs on marriage?
So my current belief of marriage is gonna be definitely a union between a woman and a man, and it's blessed by God. It's led by God. I look at it from a religious standpoint because that's how marriage was introduced to our society anyway. However, the longer we went on in time and the more ignorant we've become and started to question what was true and what God stood for. So a lot of times we fall away from a lot of that stuff that we looked at as morally correct, because now you see a lot of adulting going on, a lot of hookups out of wedlock and things like that, where that does lead to unwanted pregnancies and all kinds of diseases being spread around. So it is a issue in its own as well.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your input. The next person I'm going to call up is Anton.
That's okay.
When you were growing up, did you view marriage as optional or mandatory?
I mean, I saw it as I saw it as ideal, like not necessarily required, but I knew I knew of like relatives and stuff that weren't married, or they just kind of lived a single life. So it wasn't like a foreign thing to me to not be married, but I just thought for me, like, oh, ideally, if life is to go as I plan, it would be ideal to be married and to have someone like in your life and a partner like that. So I guess a personal goal of mine was to ideally become married one day.
The second question.
We just got our subscription box supported by Amazon.com. The Happy Box is a monthly subscription box for senior citizens. The Happy Box is filled with interesting gadgets, inspiring words, fascinating information, delicious treats, and other awesome things. We all wish that we could spend more time with the seniors in our lives. The Happy Box is an easy way to give the senior something to look forward to, something to check out and open, and something to share with their friends. The Happy Box sends happiness to the seniors in our lives.
And what are your current beliefs on marriage?
As I got older, I just kind of realized society's just sort of like falling apart in ways we didn't know as children. Because as a kid, I was just like, oh, life's going to be perfect. You know, you go to school, get good grades, get a good career. And if you're a good person, you'll meet a good person and you'll live happily ever after. But now it's just like the difficulties of, navigating this world of like the career, and even like dating people's harder than you think it was when you were like, how you thought it would work out when you were 8 years old, when you're an adult. So, and now I'm seeing all these economic issues too. So now I'm just seeing marriage as like, and I'm seeing a lot of people that are married that are not getting along. And so, for me personally, it's like, yeah, it's still kind of ideal to get married. Am I going to go all big with the wedding? Probably not. I don't even know if I'm a wedding person. But for me, I think marriage at this point is like, I have to actually love this person. And then it also has to make sense economically, because who knows, the tax laws could have changed like 30 years ago, or 30 years ago, 30 years and 30 years ago from that point to now, 30 years from then to now, and it may not be beneficial for everyone to get married depending on your tax brackets. So, it kind of loses the definition. It's turning into like a government thing more than like a union of two people falling in love. So it's ideal, but I have to cross that bridge when I come to it.
Okay, thank you so much for your input. And the next person I'm going to call is Kita. Kita, when you were growing up, did you view marriage as optional or mandatory?
Hi, Marissa. Yes, I did view marriage as mandatory because I grew up in a religious home, and my parents had been married. Well, at this point now, they've been married over 40 years, and it's just been really heavily promoted in, the churches. So I viewed it as mandatory. It was kind of like, us young Black girls in the church, we idolized marriage because this was what was always being preached to us and encouraged, that you have to have a husband. And honestly, looking back on it, it was kind of a lot of pressure. Okay, so that's, my view of marriage, especially coming from a two-parent household where my parents are actually still happily married today. It was a lot of pressure, thinking about it now. Yeah.
Okay. And what are your current beliefs on marriage?
My current beliefs are that I still believe in marriage, even though I have gone through some unfortunate struggles myself. I do believe in it. I still, I still stand for marriage. However, I don't feel like this is something that people should be pressured into, like, because of religious, background. I don't think that they should be pressured into doing it if either they're not ready, or, sometimes family members, they're just kind of like joking around, like, oh, when you going to get married? But it actually becomes like a lot of pressure on someone. So even though I still believe in it, I just feel like, kind of like what Anton said, people should be able to fall in love and naturally progress to that versus being pressured by family or church background.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for your input. So I wanted to get everyone's opinions rather, on some well-known relationship dynamics. So I'm going to go on to the first story. Television host, rapper, and actor Nick Cannon has recently welcomed the birth of his 12th child. His children's names are Monroe, Moroccan, Golden, Powerful, Zion, Zillion, Zen, Legendary, Onyx, Rise, Beautiful, and Halo. He shares children with ex-wife Mariah Carey, Brittany Bell, Abby De La Rosa, Bree Teasy, I don't know how to say her last name, Bree Teasy, Lanisha Cole.
Hi, my name is Dare Doss, and I am now the proud owner of Wallabox, your mobile life protected. Wallabox is a phenomenal idea, phenomenal invention that she invented that holds your phone onto your wall, either in your business or residential area, that comes in cute little different colors: blue, black, purple, pink. Also, we have gray and white. And it also has an area that you can charge your phone. Mobile life protected. Thank you.
And Alyssa Scott. During a December 2022 episode of The Checkup with Dr. Angus on Paramount Plus, Nick Cannon said, "Being a father of multiple kids, it's always the biggest guilt trip on me that I don't get to spend enough time with all of my children." Cannon said, "One, because I'm constantly working, and two, because I'm just spread really thin." So I have some questions about the Nick Cannon and the scenario that he's currently in. But Jacob, what is your opinion on Nick Cannon having multiple children with multiple women?
Wow, that's kind of okay. So that's a tough, really, because I recently saw that article myself, and I've read a little bit about that. So I mean, I think kids, are great for the most part. It's a lot of responsibility. It's something that I take very seriously. And I think, if there are people out there who have a lot of children, that they should be able to provide for those children and take care of those children. So part of me feels like, if he can do that, that's wonderful. But also it makes me wonder about like his commitment to self-control, maybe a little bit. Just the fact that like he has had multiple partners, and it's not like over a long period of time. It's a very short period of time. I think his oldest kids are, like you're saying, were 11. And I remember when he had those children with Mariah Carey and was with her. And, that's not a very long time ago. And the last couple of years, he's had like 2 or 3 in just 1 year. And so, I mean, I think that I kind of think it's a little, like I said, talks a little bit about, some self-control issues maybe. And he's talking about being spread thin and stuff. And I think every parent sort of feels that way. But like, at the same time, like, you're making the choice, like, the risk, when you're engaged in multiple relationships, like those are always a risk. Yet at the same time, he can afford to have 12 children. I think if that were like, one of us, like, it would be like, wow, this is a big strain, like financially, emotionally, spiritually, just very stressful.
Wow, thank you, Jacob, and thank you so much for calling in. The next person I'm going to call up is going to be, let me see. I'm going to call up TC. TC, what is your opinion on Nick Cannon having multiple children with multiple women?
Yes, Nick Cannon is literally wilding out. Like he is just I don't agree with what he's doing, to be honest.
Yeah.
And it's not ideal. And even though he can afford it, I don't think it's healthy. I think he was in the hospital recently because he was literally overworking and not resting.
Yes, it's happened like more than once. Yeah.
Exactly. And that would be detrimental to those kids if they lose their father. So it's one thing not having enough time to spend with all of his children. Then it's another thing to not being healthy. And so basically all he's doing now is taking care of them financially, to be honest. And I think marriage and having children requires more than just finances. I agree with what Kylon said earlier about marriage is something that God designed, and for one man and one woman to be fruitful and multiply, and it's healthy, it's ideal.
if it's one man and one woman?
Hi, I'm Yvonne. This is Shelly, owners of Smoke Show Boot Company based in Texas.
We created the original contour calf cowboy boot. We really pride ourselves on being an inclusive brand for women of all sizes.
Check us out at smokeshowbootco.com on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok.
Bye,
Bye,
y'all.
y'all.
Thank you. Okay, thank you so much for your input. Next person I'm going to call up is Victoria. Victoria, what is your opinion on Nick Cannon having multiple children with multiple women? I'm sorry. Yes, I'm right. Multiple children with multiple women. Yes.
Yes. So this is interesting because I was actually talking about this a few days ago with one of my really close friends, and I think I agree with a lot of other people in this room that I don't really approve 100% of the way he's going about it. But my friend did bring up the interesting point of, well, these children, their mothers are not able to afford their education, et cetera, et cetera. So even though he's an absentee father, he can pay for them to go to the best private schools, to go to the best public schools, to get a great education, to be healthy, to be fed, to be, et cetera. But then in contrast, I asked, well, then why not just choose another person who has no children, but the same, financial opportunities provided. So, I mean, I don't think it's ideal. And again, yeah, like TC said before, his health is a big contributor too. And also, it's obviously important to have financial stability for a child, but at the same time, there's also emotional stability. And, you can give them all the money in the world, but if they don't know what to do with it, if they don't have guidance, if they don't use what the resources they're given properly, then what good is all of it?
Exactly. Thank you. Thank you so much for calling in. I appreciate your input. Okay, this is the next story. 29-year-old actress Keke Palmer and her boyfriend Darius Jackson shared their baby news publicly for the first time last month. The Screen Queen star first announced her pregnancy news while making her hosting debut on Saturday Night Live. While many people were happy about this news, some people had other views on it. On YouTube, some comments said the following: "As a woman who had children before marriage, I can say that this is not okay and we shouldn't normalize this." Another commenter said, "I always thought that she would be a wife before having a baby." And another comment said, "Having a child is way more responsibility than getting married. I think this is weird, no matter if you are famous or not. The baby mama culture has to end." So those are some interesting comments. So I have some questions about the Keke Palmer scenario. Let's see, Kylan. Let me see, I'm gonna ask you, what is your opinion on Keke Palmer's recent pregnancy news?
I mean, personally, I feel like it's great news to have. It's always a blessing to actually, bring a child within the world. And, even if it is it's a crazy world that we live in, I always think it's great news to actually hear that. Now, I will say for the people that criticize the fact that she's not married, I mean, it's not ideal to just have a kid with someone that you just with at that point in time and not married in wedlock. But not everything works the same for everyone, and everyone has their own circumstances. So I feel like it'll work out in its own way, regardless what happens between her and her boyfriend.
Okay, all right, thank you. Thank you for your input. Second question is, do you agree with any of the opinions of the commenters on social media about her pregnancy news?
Well, I agree to some extent. Here's the thing. I agree with the fact that, yeah, it's not the best of decisions to, have a kid outside of being married and whatnot, because when you're married, it's a commitment you have to that family. And I feel like that's one thing that's missing out of society today anyway, is when people start having kids and not married and whatnot, it's almost as if, like, I feel like it's more than just a piece of paper, as people would call it, because that's a whole commitment. And you not being in that commitment to that family is like saying you're definitely going to bail if something don't work out right. And I guess that's the part of marriage that is special. But in her case, I mean, not everybody has that same story, as some people have came from a two-parent home. However, some were single parents before they even got married. So I personally feel like it'll work out in her favor, as long as things align right. But I feel like you can't judge other people's decisions or life based off of what you have going on, because some people can handle it and some people can't.
Okay, thank you so much, Kylan, for giving your input and for calling in. I appreciate it. The next person I'm going to call up is Kita. What is your opinion on Keke Palmer's recent pregnancy news?
Yes, I would prefer, that she were married, but like I said, people shouldn't have to live under that pressure. And no matter what you do, you're not going to stop people from having sex out of marriage. This has just been going on, since the beginning of time. It's never going to stop. It's how people, produce children. So it's nothing, that we can do to change that. So I would prefer she be married, but she seems like she's happy, with this young man. And, she's produced a pregnancy, they produce a child together. So I do feel like if it's okay for them at this time, maybe it will progress, like I said, to a marriage. But you don't want to just marry him, because now you're pregnant, and then, you may be unsure about some things, and then the relationship turns toxic, and now you have this child that's growing up in that environment, but mom and dad are married, but then they're miserable. So that affects the child as well. So, like I said, coming from my background, I do prefer it. But if this is the best that they can do right now, and then maybe can either progress, or maybe they'll find out, in a year or two, that it's not what they thought. And then she can move on and find someone better suited for her, and vice versa for him. And then they can co-parent, and that child can grow up, like that, if it's a healthy situation. So that's kind of like how I feel about it. I do, personally like Keke Palmer a lot. So I was happy for her, as a woman that desires children of my own one day. I was happy for her.
Okay, and do you agree with any of the opinions of the commenters on social media?
Kind of like what he said, Colin, to a certain degree, you know, but like we said, with that commitment issue, some people, they can't make that commitment. And I do feel like if you love that person, even though it is just a piece of paper, why not go and, make it official if you genuinely have that love and you really see that this is that person for you. But like I said, that pressure, I know what it's like to live under that pressure. And, if it works out better where you don't, have that at the moment, that union, then let it be, because you don't want to make that vow before God. And then, like we see, a lot of things end up in divorce. So
thank you so much, Kita, for giving your input, and thank you so much for calling in. And the last person, no problem. The last person I'm going to call up is TC. And what is your opinion on Keke Palmer's recent pregnancy news?
Yes, I'm a fan of Keke Palmer. Growing up, watching her, grow up and everything. I do not like the fact that she's having this child out of wedlock. I do agree with the comment section that this baby mama stuff has to stop. It's becoming too prevalent, especially in ethnic communities, in the Black community. It's too much. It's too dramatic. It's not healthy. I'm a married man with children, and I had my children after marriage. I feel like that's the way it's supposed to be. Like I said earlier, marriage is something designed by God. And, he wants us to be fruitful and multiply. That's why in his word, it says, marriage is honorable to all, and the marriage bed undefiled. But fornicators and adulterers will be punished. So people doing what they want to do, and I know ladies, the clock is ticking, and she's a celebrity, she has the finances, but I don't think it's smart to do this without marriage.
Okay, thank you, TC. Thank you. Yes, thank you for giving that heartfelt comment. So thank you everyone for calling in and tuning in, and please follow us to watch our next episode.